Even if you believe in luck or you believe in grace, those two things are never dependent on you. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If you are going to apply in October of... You didn't see that. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the podcast, What It Is, with me, Princess Siafa. If it's your first time here, it's really nice to have you here. Thank you for joining me. On today's episode, we're continuing our talk on the diversity visa program. And if you haven't seen the previous one, this video is just a part 2. So in part 1, we talked about the history of the program and its impact on American immigration policies. So definitely check that out. It's really interesting. I learned quite a lot just doing it. And I hope you did too. And I hope you will get the chance to. But in today's episode, we are going to be looking at the current state of the DV program, who meets the eligibility requirements, how to apply, and just everything you need to know if you're going to be applying for DV 2026. So let's get right into it. I applied for the diversity visa program between like 2014, 2015-ish. I never won, which is, it's okay, whatever. But I do remember that I never realized that the program was free because I didn't have access to a smartphone or a laptop. I didn't own any. So by then, we would go to an internet cafe, fill out a paper application, and then submit that application to someone who had access to the computer at the cafe, pay like a little fee for them to do it for us, and then they would take your picture, put your information in, type it in, and then print out your confirmation number and give it to you. Then to go and check the result, you also had to go back to that cafe and then pay another fee. People are making business on this, but obviously it's only if you don't have access. So I guess that makes sense. But anywho, that's just my little disappointing story on not ever winning the lottery. But let's get into today's episode. The main reason why you're here, right? Just as a recap, the DV program, or the green card lottery, we're just going to call it a DV program for now, because saying diversity visa all the time is really stressing me out. So the DV program is a free annual lottery program that allows people from countries with historically low immigration rates to the U.S. to apply for a U.S. immigrant visa. The application process is every year. It takes just about 60 minutes online. You can use your smartphone. You can use a laptop. So if you do have access to any of those two, I'll strongly suggest not to go to a cafe and pay for someone to do it for you. Try to do it yourself. You want to avoid scams and anybody keeping your confirmation number and asking you to pay before they give it to you. You can apply using travel.state.gov. Always make sure any website you're using as it relates to the DV program has a .gov attached to it. That's how you know it's an official website for the program, because you don't want to run into any scammer. You should not have to pay any fee for the DV program until you've been asked to go for an interview where you would do a medical examination fee and, all of that other fees in your visa application. In the initial process, 0 fees required. And it's very simple, very accessible. All you have to do is to make sure you have all of your information ready before you start the application, because you can't save it, you can't download it, you can't print it for later. You have to complete it all in one sitting. So get everything ready, your photos, everything that you will need to submit the application. The Kentucky Consular Center is the one that processes the registration and will notify people when they've been selected. Now, the program selection itself is done by a computer-generated program that just selects people at random. The consular will manage that and notify you. For DV 2023, you have over 119,000 people that were notified that they've been selected for the program. And that's from over 9 million people who had applied. So we mentioned in the previous video that the cap for the DV program is 55,000 visas. But what you notice is over 119,000 persons were selected. And that's just because they want to make sure that they're able to award at least the 55,000 visas or 50,000 or 49, whichever, but they want to get as close to that number as possible. They will notify more than the amount that they actually will award. So you've been notified that you were selected for further processing does not mean you're guaranteed a U.S. visa. So make sure you're not making any permanent lifestyle changes like selling a car, selling your house, or anything. Africa itself typically is reserved 15,000 visas per year when it comes to the DV program, and that is split between the countries that apply. So no more than 7% of visas can be awarded to each geographic region. The application process begins at 12 noon in October on any specified date, and then it will end in November at 12 noon. So it should take about 30 to 35 days max. There is no extension for the program, so make sure that you're applying as soon as it's open, just to avoid any technical difficulties over time, because remember, you have millions and millions of people who are applying for this program every year. So yes, the system will crash. Yes, something will go wrong if you wait till it's the last day of applications. Once you've done the application process, you have next year of May 2025, you have that time to check the entrance status check webpage to see if you've been selected or not. So the current status of the program has seen a significant rate of decline, with the win rate dropping by 80% since 1995 to now. So that's about 0.25% chances of you winning the DV program. That's like 1 in 400 applications. So the odds are not great, but again, it's a lottery system. There's not much you can do about that. A very turning part of this decline is due to several presidential proclamations that were passed in 2017, started mostly from a terrorism attack in New York City, where you had someone who came by the DV process, drove a vehicle into a group of people in New York City and killed several. From then, 6 countries were banned, and most of these countries, had a huge Muslim population. So most people call it the Muslim ban and protested against it. Since 2021, President Biden has, revoked all of these bans. But there's still a huge backlog at a lot of embassies for people who were already being called for an interview in 2017 and who did not have the chance to go back, and they were denied due to administrative processing, and all of that. Let's look at eligibility requirements. Now, this is the most important part to consider way before you even think about applying for a DV program. Because if you cannot prove these two during your interview, you're automatically disqualified right there. So the very first thing you have to do is to make sure that you're from a country that has historically low immigration rates to the U.S. So over the span of 5 years, your country must not have sent over 55,000 immigrants to the U.S. Through other means, including the DV program. The countries of eligibility changes every year. For the 2026 program, a new list will be submitted. But now here's a hack. If you are from a country that doesn't qualify for the diversity visa program, there are 2 things you can do. Number 1, if either one of your parents are from a country that's eligible, you can claim their country as your country of eligibility. Or the second hack is that you can claim the country of eligibility of your spouse. If your husband or wife is from another country that is eligible, you can claim their country as yours. And then the second most important or final eligibility requirement is that you have to be a high school graduate. Now, if you didn't, you still have to show that you have 2 years in a qualifying work experience. So like a specific vocational program that qualifies as a substitute for a high school diploma. So how to find out exactly what qualifies for this is to go to a website called ONET. You can check that via the DV program website. And there, the U.S. Department of Labor has provided several zones from 1 to 5, I believe, that will show you what will qualify you with a 7.0 score for the DV program. So what you want to do is to go check this ONET website and then make sure that the job that you're currently doing or the career path that you're currently on qualifies in Zone 4 or Zone 5. Those are the only two zones that will qualify you. If you're in Zone 3, Zone 2, Zone 1, it's a bit shaky over there. Let's take you through the exact steps that are required for the application process, from application all the way till your travel, okay? We're going to go through each step. There are 10 steps. Step 1 is to submit your entry. Now, we already went over this. Lit entries are never, ever accepted. Only one entry is allowed per person. After you submit your application, you will receive a confirmation number. And you want to make sure that you print this confirmation number. If you're applying for the program and you run into technical difficulties, like you keep hitting submit and it's not processing, or you don't see a confirmation, stay there. Make sure you hit submit, keep hitting it, keep pushing it. Because if you leave that website without submitting and seeing a confirmation number, it means that your application has not been filed and your entry does not exist. Now, if you lose it, don't freak out. Now, on the DV program website, there's a way to recover your confirmation number using your personal information and the email address you entered on file. And step number 2 is the selection of applicants. All right, so selection of applicants typically happen in May, like I said. So for DV 2026, once you've applied between October and November, you wait in May of 2025, then you can check the entrance status check webpage. You're going to need your confirmation number to check. And you check in to see essentially if you've been selected or not. Step 3, if you are selected, you want to complete the DS-260 immigrant visa in alien registration application. And if you already live in the US and you've won the diversity visa program, you can skip the application for the visa and just apply to adjust your status to a permanent resident. So number 4, confirm your qualifications. So you want to gather every supporting document. You never want to go to the embassy and they ask you for this and you don't have it or you forgot it. Step 5 is to submit your immigrant visa and alien registration application. So the DS-260 form that you filled out in step 3, you now have the chance to submit it now. Once you do this, you'll be assigned a rank number. Now, the rank number is something that's based off of the number of visas they can provide. If your rank number is really high, it may mean that it will take longer for you to get scheduled for an interview because they will give preference to those who have lower rank numbers. Now, there's always the possibility that those with the lower rank numbers may not qualify for the visa, so you will get called for an interview. So if your rank number is very high, don't stress. You still can qualify for a diversity visa. It's just that your chances are slim compared to those with the lowercase numbers. If you applied as someone who was single and your status changed, you want to have supporting documents to prove that. Like you had a kid or you have a kid on the way, you want to make sure you add them to your application as derivative applicants. For married couples, you're encouraged to apply separately just because it will increase your chances of winning. Applying separately doesn't mean that you're applying as singles. Your marital status will still have to be checked. As married, if you have any kid, you still have to mention that you do, because any kid that's under the age of 21 can be added to your program as a derivative applicant. You're going to pay the non-refundable visa application fee of $330 if it hasn't increased yet, and print the confirmation page as your receipt because you will need this for your interview. Step 6, I don't know, most of these things sounds repetitive to me. I don't know why. But step 6, you prepare supporting documents. So you will need translations for any non-English document that you'll be taking to the embassy, and have that translation along with the original document that you will take with you for your interview. So any military records, birth certificate, your passport, and your passport has to be valid for 6 months before the intended date that you will need to travel to the US. Now, step 7, we have the interview. KCC will notify you via the EDV website when your interview has been scheduled. You will not receive any email, no phone call, no text message to tell you that, hey, your interview has been scheduled and it's time for you to come and do it. You have to be very proactive. Make sure that you know exactly when the selection process is going to be done, and make sure you're following every instruction. Every single person that you've listed on your application as a derivative applicant, you must bring them to that interview process. Unless you guys will be traveling separately, then you have to call the embassy and schedule a separate interview for them. And then step 8, you want to prepare for the interview. So your interview would be at a U.S. embassy or U.S. consulate. It could be a place that's near you. It could be a place that's far away. You can reschedule for another place that's closer to you if they are allowed to conduct the interview. So bring all your required documents, including your interview appointment letter, your DS-260 confirmation page, all your supporting documents that you gathered in the previous step. You also want to bring your medical examination, bring the sealed results to your interview. And then step 9 is the actual interview. It can honestly be nerve-wracking at this step because now you're at the embassy and this is the make or break it, you know? It's either you walk in there and they're like, you've won and this is your visa, or you don't qualify and hasta la vista. Oh, that rhymed. Oh, I'm like poetic or something. This is where that you can actually prove to them that you are eligible to come to the US. The interview process honestly will differ for everybody because different officers do different interviews. So I've heard some people say that they ask you math questions. Maybe if your career that you're saying you're a mathematician, then maybe they'll ask you math questions. Whatever technical vocation that you're working in, maybe you will get some questions concerning that, just to verify that this is actually work that you're doing. But again, it's just random. It's based on the consulate officer. Whatever they choose to ask you, they can. But they also have to go by the documents you've submitted and make sure that you meet the eligibility requirements. And there they can tell you yay or nay. Step 10 is the final step after your interview. So you walk out, you've been approved, and then it's yay. Wait, I had an exclamation mark here, so I think I should be more excited in this. But congratulations! Oh my God. You need to travel before your visa expires. If that visa expires, you will not enter the United States using that same DV application process that you did. If you were denied, remember, don't fret, it's okay. It could be for several reasons. One reason why you may not be eligible is because you haven't convinced the consular officer that you will not be a public charge to the U.S. It just means that you've convinced them that the U.S. will not be financially responsible for you once you're here for the few months before you can find work, before you can get your green card. So they could say administrative processing, so maybe they need more time to confirm certain documents that you submitted, and they will let you know maybe if they need you to resubmit certain documents. Also, it could be because your police clearance, you didn't pass it. Maybe you have a criminal record. It could be because that you failed the medical examination. Remember, it's a sealed envelope, so you may not even know what. So just before you go for the medical examination, make sure you have a clean bill of health. The other thing to that is if it's an illness, and then the consulate officer will let you know if you can file a waiver of eligibility. So if they denied you based on something, the officer will always inform you that, hey, you can file a waiver for this. And if you do file a waiver, you may or may not, qualify for your visa application. If they don't tell you that you can file a waiver, then there's honestly nothing that you can do, and you just have to reapply the next year. But it will be your duty now to look over your interview process, look over the documents you submitted, and try to figure out where anything went wrong during the application process. And make sure you fix it before you apply the next time. There's no limit to the number of times you can apply for the DV program. It's only once per year, so you just have to make sure you keep to that. But you can keep applying as long as you want, and as long as it's going to take you to qualify. I'm sitting here and I think my legs are getting cramps. Whoa. If you're applying in October, just be very wary of anybody who claims that, they've got a hack that will let you win the diversity visa program. I honestly believe it's just a lottery system, and there's really not much you can do. Even if you believe in luck or you believe in grace, Those two things are never dependent on you. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. There are certain things you can do to ensure that you have better chances, like making sure your documents are right, making sure that you're meeting all of the requirements, making sure that you're going over every single instruction and executing it to the T. You can always look into other modes of coming to the US. Now, just like Nigeria doesn't qualify and other countries don't qualify for the DV program for some years, it doesn't mean that they still can't immigrate to the US through other means. They can still immigrate from their family sending for them, through marriage, through employment-based visas or student-based visa programs. So the DV program is just there if you do not meet any of those other criteria to come here, and just to give you that opportunity that you can come here. One thing I do think that the DV program can be doing better is to just make sure that the embassies of each country, of all of the countries that are applying, that are in the US, they are doing their possible best to assist citizens, especially those who are winners when they come here, because not everybody here who comes by the program has a family member or a friend that they can rely on. So to have that extra support through your embassy or your consulate, wherever you are in a new country, is very helpful. It can help your transition process to be very smooth, very nice. And I think that's something that's really lacking right now, and that every country should focus on, just making sure that you're supporting diversity visa applicants. If you are going to apply in October of this year, I wish you all the best, all the best, all the best. And if you applied for DV 2025 and you didn't win, this is another opportunity for you to apply this year in October of 2024. Use it. Make sure you're checking the website as soon as the applications go live at 12 p.m. on that specified date. Get it. Start applying, do it. It's a lottery system, so if you don't win, no worries. We can just wake up and do it all again.